You're listening to the Big Cast, your source for the latest in financial technology. Brought to you weekly by the Best Innovation Group, with your hosts, John Best and Glen Sarvati.
Welcome to another edition of the Big Cast. My name is Glen Sarvati on behalf of the Best Innovation Group, where we like to do cool things with financial technology. And today, we've got what I think are a pair of very thought-provoking interviews with a couple of founders I caught up with at the Financial Health Network's Emerge conference, which took place right here in my hometown of Atlanta, Georgia, a couple weeks ago. We're going to be speaking with Frida Leibowitz of Debbie Rewards and Ted Leong of Prosprous.ai. And that'll be coming up in just a second. Before that, just want to remind you, you can always find out more about the Best Innovation Group by checking out the website big-fintech.com. You can always check out our CU Town Halls as well. We are going to be taking a break from the CU Town Hall for the summer holidays in June, but we will be back in mid-July, so we'll have a date for you on that in the in the not-too-distant future. But if you go to cutownhall.com, you'll find all the past replays of past sessions as well if you want to get caught up. As usual, the merry-go-round goes faster and faster these days. Lots of kind of current events to catch up on real quickly, I want to mention. First off, the inevitable happened. Seen this coming for some time, but of course you have to wait till the last minute before you see the action. The Illinois legislature kicked the can down the road further. They pushed the implementation, the effective date for the Interchange Fee Prohibition Act out yet another year. They had done it once, they've done it again to July of 2027. So the heat is off theoretically. It was kind of inevitable in my mind they had to do this because the OCC recently put out a statement saying that in their view they were taking the stance that federal banking law had preempted the Interchange Fee Act that they had put into effect in Illinois, which would have prohibited charging any interchange revenue on taxes or tips, which, as anybody in the industry knows, is extremely difficult to imagine how that could be implemented. The National Credit Union Administration, the NCUA, has now followed suit and said, yep, us too, we read it the same way. Federal law preempts. It doesn't make it work for absolutely everybody, but it makes things even more complex. I've got to believe at some point this whole thing just goes away, but for now we're pushed out, so we bought some time. There's some more courtroom proceedings that are going to be revisited. But we're back into that kind of waiting period again. The next on the watch list, however, is the state of Colorado, which passed its own interchange law, which wasn't the same, only affected tax, not tips. Also had a whole bunch of other stuff that, in my mind, makes it almost comical. And here's where I'm going to break in with some news that hit just as we were about to post this episode. So a quick update. As it turns out, we received word that Colorado Governor Polis has indeed vetoed that interchange bill. A couple of quotes he made in terms of doing so. He wrote a 3-page letter connected to that. Even if it were to survive legal scrutiny, it's questionable whether the bill is fully implementable or operationally feasible, he says, which frankly is something that was said by a couple of the Illinois legislators right after they passed the damn thing, which is pretty bizarre. But this is an even more official statement along those lines. Governor Polis also does add that he is, quote unquote, open to the core concepts that are in this bill, which is, part of the idea that, the individual retailers shouldn't be paying to collect on taxes that are owed to the government. They're basically serving in the function of tax collector for the state. It's true also that used to have a system in place from Illinois that actually covered them for that. I don't know if that was already the case in Colorado. Hopefully, some other states will take notice and give some more thought to their own process down this path. A couple weeks ago, we shared an interview with Eric Berg, who's the co-founder of a company called Duom, which I found very interesting. And at the time, we called them the runner-up in the next big idea competition at the NCUSO Reimagine conference. Well, check that. After the NCUSO did an audit of the results, they have gone back and declared that actually Duom was the winner of that next big idea competition. So which I think our interview was already quite interesting and relevant. Now it's even more relevant. Congratulations to Eric Berg on that. We'll post a link so you can go back and visit that one again. It was interesting because as they did the audit, they discovered there were more votes cast than there were people who were attending the session, which says something strange about the system in some way. And I do remember while we were watching, because it was live polling via, I guess Slido was the way it was being done, All of a sudden there was a giant burst where it looked like Duom had been in the lead, and then all of a sudden in one big packet you saw a whole bunch of votes come in for the other the at one point considered the winner of the competition, and the Duom then kind of narrowed the gap a little bit further, but never made it all the way back. Turns out that, I guess, based on that audit, Duom was in fact the winner. Really interesting solution, trying to get into the housing affordability crisis, particularly for first-time homeowners. Go back to the original link. We found a storage locker someplace on site and had a really good conversation while standing on top of crates in there. It was if you can help picture that while you're listening. The other big one that I mentioned very briefly last week on the episode was the Pope's newly issued encyclical on AI. And it occurred to me, wouldn't it be funny to actually it's a 42,000 word document. Wouldn't it be kind of ironic to just kind of put it into AI to summarize for us? I haven't done that yet, but I think it would be kind of fun. If anybody has, send it along to me. I'd be curious to see what kind of results came out for you. And, if you get multiple ones with different people sending it in, I'd be curious how similar they all look. I think to some extent, there may be a little bit of a misunderstanding, and I do plan to do a deep dive. I'm not going to pretend I've read all 42,000 words. I've probably read a good dozen articles that really tried to have different takes on it. My takeaway at this point is this is not an anti-AI statement per se. It's actually fairly constructive in that fashion and doesn't seem to think that AI should be abolished at all costs or anything like that. It actually sounds to me a lot more like a human in the loop argument, which is something we've been talking around here for some time. So if you haven't taken a look yet, we'll try to post another link or two of some of the more interesting takes on that, and we'll probably dig into it a little bit further in the near future as well. Let's get on to our main event. The Financial Health Network's Emerge Conference had a much stronger credit union presence. I have not been to any of their conferences. I was there, I don't know how, I've attended a couple. I think they were both before COVID. It's been some time since I had a chance to attend, and I was very impressed. I thought the thought leadership was very strong, and the audience, I think, was very engaged and, frankly, a little more diverse from what I remember. It seemed a little more aspirational and inspirational, I thought. And not only were there more credit unions there, but there were players like Chime and Cash App also talking about how they see themselves as working into financial health. So another, kind of interesting twist, and another reason credit unions need to stay involved in this space, because we obviously want to stay in a leading position in terms of financial health. We had recently, in one of our other episodes, we mentioned that our friends at Debbie, who we first saw at Finovate, I think in their coming out party in, I think it was 2022, if I'm not mistaken. They had recently completed a very successful funding round, and I was very happy to see them on the agenda. Well, co-founder Frida Leibowitz was here at the Emerge conference, so I got a chance to catch up with her. Their company, based on what they do with debt reduction, is a natural fit for something like the Financial Health Network. So I caught up with her on that and a variety of other things, including what I think is a subtle branding change that I think works to Debbie's benefit. Have a listen. Here with an old friend, Frida Leibowitz, the co-founder of Debbie Rewards at Financial Health Network. You were on stage this morning, and I'm still learning new things about your origin story at the startup of Debbie, but obviously I've been following along, and you guys are going great. Congratulations, fundraise recently. It's successful.
Thank you.
What was how much was that? It was 3 million, 3.5?
We raised, a little bit more than that actually. I think total raise was close to 6 million.
Wow. Oh, it's even bigger than I thought. Yeah. So that's obviously you guys are on a roll. I think of kind of your marquee client, at least from my world, is Michigan State Federal Credit Union, and I know the majority of your in production clients are in the credit union space. But you also kind of another nameplate is SoFi.
Yes, that's right. So I think that when we started, our mission has been and always will be to get financial access and rewards for good financial behavior into the hands of every single American.
Thank you for kind of laying that out. I'm kind of forgetting that people don't necessarily know the full backstory.
Yes, and I think just the important part of that is we knew that credit unions would be the early adopters. They were the first ones to jump on board. We love credit unions. They're part of our origin story.
And part of your investor base.
Part of our investor base. That's true. So MSUFCU, their CUSE is called Reseda. Yes. And they've invested in Debbie since early on. They continue to support us. They are incredible. They were actually co-leads on the seed round that we just announced. And we always believed in credit unions. But the nice thing is, and this is really cool, we're retelling the story, because I think that in this movement, where we're changing how rewards work in financial services, credit unions are the ones leading the story. So I think, like, the way that it's, at least with Debbie, right? Credit unions were the first ones to see the potential to do it. And now we see other fintechs. Now we have SoFi doing it, and they're jumping on, and they're looking at what credit unions are doing, and they want to follow the credit unions. So you're going from a world where credit unions, they were always seen as the followers. And in this space, they really have the potential to be the leaders where other fintechs and banks that we're working with now, we're using stories and case studies from credit unions. And we're showing them, look at how this is done and how this can also be profitable and overall a very sustainable model. So that's a really cool story. I'm excited to keep working with more and more financial institutions.
I know you've said before that, your message all along is financial wellness, debt reduction. And I've heard you're kind of starting to, it just because it makes it easier for people to understand, you've referred to Debbie Rewards. That Debbie is a very generic name. People at the first glance might not know what that means. You're kind of turning the rewards program on its head and incenting an entirely different set of behaviors.
Yeah. I think that this is also something that I talked a little bit about this morning. My struggle in this space is that when you use words like financial wellness, financial literacy, for better or for worse, those things got, they're now associated with like, oh, we do nice things. This is a charity. This is something that, every bank has to, and financial institution is going to check off the box. They're going to have some small budget towards it. I want to reframe that story completely. This is a way to build loyalty. This is a way to directly impact your bottom line as a financial institution. And it's interesting because ever since we really reframed it, we're Debbie Rewards. This is a rewards program that is just as much as it is helping financial wellness, it is also increasing deposits, decreasing default rates.
Acquisition strategy.
And It's an acquisition strategy. Exactly. It's reducing your acquisition costs because now you have an exciting way to engage a consumer. And that is, all of those things are directly flowing into the bottom line. So it's been really cool to be able to tell that story. And also I think even on the consumer angle, right, that really focusing on the rewards aspects, it turns this into something that's exciting, that people are excited by, right? Like if you're just like scrolling through Instagram or TikTok and you're seeing ads for financial wellness, is that as exciting or enticing, or does that compete with everything else you're seeing, as opposed to if you're seeing something about rewards, right? Because think about what young consumers are seeing today. They're seeing sports betting. They're seeing how they can win more money, get more, earn more. We had to find a way to make this really relevant and as exciting, and it is really just as exciting, if not more.
Well, you mentioned kind of the dopamine hit, which I'm thinking very specifically around sports betting. It feels good to actually be rewarded. So if you're actually rewarding behaviors that are positive in the long run, and that's what you're doing. I think you also mentioned, because of the funding mechanism being different, you don't have interchange behind this to actually fund rewards programs like a typical credit card. This is typically kind of funded as a marketing expense at most of your institutions?
Correct.
Doesn't have to be, but that's what they choose to kind of look at it as, or that's the usual entry point, or where it resides in the budget?
Yes, exactly. It's exactly what you're saying. I think that we are, for a lot of financial institutions, we're helping reframe this, and we're saying think about your marketing costs a little different, right? Because until now, I think that the issue is with like what I call marketplaces 1.0, such as like the Credit Karmas and Bank Rates and all of those guys, which is it's a great place for any financial institution to go find new customers. But the way those models work and the way the marketing dollars are spent, they're so focused on just getting you in the door. But what happens afterwards, right? Like marketing now, a lot of folks turn me back to the marketing teams. I'm like, wait a second, we need to think about LTV. We need to think about not just like how much are we paying to get someone in the door, but then are they engaging? Are they opening up more accounts? Are they a valuable customer over time? So what we're trying to do is we're saying, hey, think about your marketing budget a little bit differently, right? Yes, you want to acquire customers, but you also want to continue to use marketing to engage your customers and build loyalty. Right. And that's really where the rewards are coming from. Like we've proven out that if you kind of split you split the way you think about your marketing budget, you have some budget for acquisition, but then you portion out a piece of it that we can calculate it for financial institutions up front because we know approximately how much the rewards are going to cost and for how long. But you think about that, okay, I'm not just investing in acquiring you right now, but I'm investing in marketing dollars to keep you engaged.
And you fund it up front. You actually put that money aside.
Well, we technically speaking, we have most of it up front, but a little bit keeps happening as a subscription cost. But yes, that's how we still have it come out of the marketing budget, and we help them think about it. How does it come out of your annual budget of marketing?
Speaking of kind of putting it up front, you've got a nice chunk of change right now from the funding mechanism. What's your intent with that? Is it coding? Is it marketing? What's the primary source or use of those funds?
Great question. So we've invested almost everything in a product. Our team is very heavily skewed towards product and engineering, as any other tech startup.
Right.
So, but I think the really cool part is, and today with AI, we're primarily the first place. I wasn't running to do like AI chatbots in our app. By the way, those things no one's talking about. That's really, really expensive if you are starting to offer some sort of like AI feature to your users. The first place that we looked is how can we leverage AI as a small team to get us to move faster, to offer our services for cheaper, and to put as much money back into our consumers' pockets.
And
also
so
offer
internal use of AI.
So
as
our
opposed to
internal use of
customer-facing.
AI has been crazy, like skyrocketing, and like we now have agentic employees. Like we have our first one, his name is Benji,
Benji,
and now we have
okay.
his brother joining very soon.
Does his brother have a name yet?
His brother, it's a bit of a team. We've got like some politics in the team right now, but what his name is going to be. But we're really investing a lot in like building agentic employees, and the rest of it, like all the rest. So really, it's like we have our core team. We're building some agents to support our work, and the rest of it is all going into growth.
Awesome.
So we're entirely focused on making sure that every user, wherever they are, is able to find out about Debbie, earn their points. And that's through direct-to-consumer marketing. That's through partnerships with other fintechs. That's through partnerships with banks. That's through partnerships with employee benefits platforms. We're looking for as many partners as possible who are, aligned with our mission, thinking about how to get more benefits into the hands of the 99%.
Well, speaking of that, if people want to find out more, it's joindebbie.com?
Joindebbie.com, still the one.
And that is the place you can both get a feel for what the consumer, although you're not marketing directly to consumers anymore, are you?
We are.
You are still, okay.
100%. Most of
So
our
you will
marketing's
see the
direct to
consumer experience there as well as a way to get in touch as a potential partner?
Yes, exactly. You can find out about how to get in touch with us. We have a whole, and we explain the value prop, and I highly recommend downloading the app and trying it out for yourself. It's the best
Absolutely.
way. I think that speaks for itself. I had people on my talk came to me afterwards and were like, "Oh, I just downloaded the app and now I love it." And I'm like, "That's it's better than any pitch I can ever give."
Or one of your co-panelists, as soon as she heard she and is using it already as a financial wellness counselor. Yeah. So perfect. Frida Leibowitz, always great to catch up with you, co-founder of Debbie. We'll have the information in the show notes as well.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you. So as soon as we find out the name of Benji's brother and Debbie's second AI agent, we'll be sure to get you that information, that important mission-critical information as soon as possible. I definitely will be following along on that one. I love the points that she makes around reframing the perception of financial health, that you don't want people thinking of it as just dull. And then she also made the point along the way in our conversation, and this was kind of a recurring theme throughout the overall event, that financial education is only a means to an end. Behavior change is really the key. And then if behavior changes, hopefully health follows with financial health, which of course is the end goal. As Frida mentioned, the approach to AI is really from an internal standpoint at Debbie. Shifting that lens from an internal to a consumer-facing use of AI is another company that I had a chance to have a conversation with. Emerge, in my mind, now this is not, I don't know if Emerge would say this as well. I don't see them as designed to really be a launch pad for a forum for new services and totally cutting edge new ideas. They're more, I think, a place of showcasing what works and hoping share best practices to move the meter forward. But having said that, there was a very early stage AI-centric company, part of a panel discussion on AI guardrails. And they were on the same panel as an established company like Fifth Third Bank. And really, really caught my attention. And let's just leave it at that and listen to my conversation with Ted Leong. This is one of the nicer settings I recall ever doing one of these interviews. We're in a wonderful green courtyard. You might be able to hear some birds in the background. And I'm here with Ted Leong, the CTO of Prosprous.ai, which is a company that I'm not familiar with and just saw you on stage as part of a broader conversation about AI guardrails that I thought was fascinating. But very specifically, Ted, your company and your mission immediately said, okay, this is somebody I got to talk to. So thanks for immediately kind of coming out here right afterwards.
Thanks for coming to find me.
So, one thing that, caught my ear, you're a B Corp, which is,
yes.
a public benefit corporation.
Yes.
Why don't you say a bit about your mission with Prosprous.ai?
To dot the I's and cross the T's, right now we're a public benefit corporation. We're working through, there's a whole bunch of certifications to become a B Corp, but that's our intention.
Got it.
And what I said on stage, which I think triggered you, is that Prosprous.ai is a public benefit corporation that is building a conversational AI coach designed for the 160 plus million Americans who are living paycheck to paycheck. And so our mission is broadly is we're looking to build a system that uses AI to help people improve their financial outcomes.
And I mean, I jotted down at one point, I think you made, and by the way, this is one example. We'll just edit out, but if you ever say anything you want to just, we don't do a whole lot of cutting and pasting, but we'll just take this out. I'm just trying to find my note of the thing that you would, here we go. One of the things that also struck me is you made the comment that you don't think technology itself is sufficient to actually solve this problem, which I thought was a telling statement.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I was talking with Assad, the moderator of the panel, backstage, and you know, we were just meeting each other for the first time, and I said, well, you know, AI is this, for better or for worse, AI is this incredible moment, and it's going to impact a lot of things, and someone has to try to do something with AI in personal finance that actually benefits users, and that's really what we're trying to do.
And we're talking mass market. I mean,
mass market. That's right. Not like when we started out on our journey, we were like, okay, like we were looking at, you know, oh, Mint had just closed down. We're interested in PFMs. Then it was like, oh, everybody wants to do something with AI. That seems kind of interesting. You think a little more about it. It's like, okay, if you actually made a thing where AI was useful for people's personal finances, who's the audience that would benefit the most from that? It's not the people that have all the money. The people that have all the money already have human experts managing their
That's
money.
a great point.
Right? The people that would benefit the most and the people that we need as a society to benefit the most are the people that don't have any money. The people that did not grow up around the dinner table talking about money. Right? Those are the people that a system that uses AI in a responsible, ethical way could actually make a difference for their actual financial circumstances.
And toward the end of the session, Melissa Coity was the one who mentioned this from FinRegLab. I thought this really resonated too. You know, she mentioned that, you know, the way things are kind of being designed now, like you mentioned, rich people, maybe it doesn't qualify as rich, but we're having this conversation right after OpenAI announced the partnership with Plaid and rolling out their own financial services. But that's got a relatively high price point. You're not going to be getting the mass market on that one, which means that their markets are most likely going to be trained on the more affluent. That's where you're going to get the fine tuning. Well, so you've got the other piece of that.
All the foundation models have this problem that you know, basically what they know is what the internet knows.
Yeah.
Colloquially speaking. And you know, most of the people talking about finance on the internet are people that have computers, that can afford computers, right? You've already shifted the sort of training input data into a realm that doesn't include a majority of that 160 million people.
Yeah.
And so that's really where we're aiming to do, is to try to figure out how to bring that kind of knowledge, and over time to specialize that knowledge to really focus on people who are underserved or in need of financial advice. The other category that I think of a lot is I have 3 daughters in their 20s. And so a lot of young people are remarkably like people who are underserved because they are just starting out. They don't know much about finance unless, again, they had the right environment growing up. So there's a big segment of people for whom things that you don't have to imagine, like in the panel we were talking about, like, oh, AIs that will go out and actually move money around you. Well, before that, there's a bunch of things that can be done that will be useful to people without taking that step, and they can affect a large number of people.
Yeah.
Because again, the other thing that I said in the panel is, like, there's no one really who's for the users in the financial services. Like, you know, you've got banks working on AI-enabled products, you have credit, but those are all going to be optimized for the banks need to make more money. The credit card companies need people to carry more balances, right? That's the interest behind it. And so for us, we're trying as much as possible to make our interest be that people's financial incomes improve. Now, in order to do that, we have to have a sustainable company, a financially sustainable company, which means we need to make some money.
I was going to ask that, right? And it came up at one point. Somebody kind of, I think it was the moderator, who kind of issued a little bit of a challenge saying, Mint.com pre-AI days, for lack of a better way of putting it, tried this, and I'm still not 100% certain why it went away, but obviously the business model wasn't sufficient. And I guess you're kind of, at this point, you're still kind of trying to center in on what
so
that would be.
my take on Mint is that is a couple of things. One is they got acquired by Intuit, and they suffered from big company syndrome, where you don't make enough money for that company to consider you to be successful. And so even though you could have maybe been successful on your own, you can't be successful inside a big company because you don't make enough money for them. It's one factor. Another factor is that Mint wasn't really that great at some things, so that was a factor. And the third factor, and again for our audience, for those 160 million Americans, Mint and Quicken and all the things that have come before, they hoover up your raw financial data, they present it back to you as tables or as graphs. And if you know what to do with those tables and graphs, you're all set. But if you don't have that knowledge, those products can't help you at all.
I'm going to guess that you'll push back on this characterization, but I'm kind of curious. If Mint were to launch today with the capabilities of AI, is that maybe what you picture this might be looking like? Or what are you kind of thinking a metaphor for it might be?
This is one of the challenges for us in, you want to build sort of from a cool technology point of view, you want to build an AI first, AI native thing, which today we think most people it's like a very chat style of user interface. But the problem with chat is, and I think we've all experienced this, you start chatting and pretty soon the conversation is scrolling off your screen, and it's kind of hard to keep track of where you are and what you were talking about. So where we're trying to walk the line is, where's the right intersection of the interfaces that people know and understand and chat, and bringing that together in a way that is more than the sum of those
and actionable
parts. Actionable, right?
For example, one of the things you mentioned I thought really clicked with me was the envelope principle, which is one of the classic ways of budgeting, that we still need a digital equivalent of that.
Yes, and the big challenge for that is that you can, inside computer programs, you can represent that there's a digital envelope, but there's no actual digital envelope, right? And so the part of that conversation was in the conversation about if computers could move around money in banks, that would be, both a good and sometimes scary thing. But the ability to move money around like that would open the door to being able to create a digital envelope system. You can imagine like a bank account that has sub-accounts represent, and that's also always been a part of the problem with these applications, is there's a disconnect between your application has a model of the world that it is working off of, but it's not connected to the real world of your finances. And so it's hard to make things turn into actual actions, right? It's one thing to have to have a plan, but we all know that having the plan sometimes is not the hardest part. It's sticking to the plan. Yeah. Right.
You can also set a diet.
Exactly.
So obviously you've got a seasoned team working on this. What is the background that you bring to the table, the various members of the startup team that,
So we have, there are 3 founders, 2 of whom have backgrounds from Wall Street.
Okay.
And have worked on various kinds of financial products. My background on the technology side is I've worked in all different kinds of companies, from hardcore technology companies. I spent 7 years at the Walt Disney Company, so working on things that were very consumer facing. So we have a pretty broad spectrum of backgrounds, which I think is an advantage for us, because we're not constrained by the thinking about the system the way it works now and feeling like we've got to work the way it already works.
And I do see, sense. I think you mentioned that, I noticed, because literally, as you were on stage, I went out to the website. I see you're gathering names right now for a wait list. You're looking to actually do an initial launch later this summer?
That's the hope, is later this summer. We expect to do some kind of launch, which I put in quotes, to start to put that in front of progressively more people as the year goes on.
Great. So the best way to find out more and join the wait list of people who are interested is the website, which is Prosperous, not spelled the way it typically would be. I guess clearly that was taken.
We typically get flagged as a misspelling, but it's Prosprous.ai, and there's information there about the company, and there is a sign up for a wait list button there.
And there is no E in Prosperous, but we'll put it in the show notes to make it a little bit easier for people to find it.
Great.
Ted Leong, CTO of Prosprous.ai. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Really liked a couple of Ted's takes there. One on why Mint went away, despite, and I know there still are some people who are lamenting the demise of Mint. They had a real fervent customer base, obviously a little bit too niche. Maybe they didn't find the right revenue model, but I think his thought about how it got absorbed into a larger company has a lot to say about maybe why it didn't survive. And the B Corp approach, which is still a relative, I don't want to say untested model, but a very new model, which I've been all very intrigued by. So I'll be curious to see how that plays out for them. I also liked his points around the dinner table money conversations, which don't take place, and unfortunately, in nearly as many households as we would hope. And the bottom line, which I think is their whole mission statement and reason for existing at Prosprous.ai, is who's in this, who's watching out for the users at the end of the day. Because it's not too hard to see is everything else going on with AI and forging partnerships with advertising firms and things like that to get the messages to people at the moment of need, where once they've expressed an interest in something. How do you get the impartial information that isn't maximizing benefit for somebody else? It's always a never-ending challenge. Probably gets back to that encyclical from the Pope Leo. But anyway, again, much more conversation to come on that. Maybe even some more conversation on the Financial Health Network. Had a couple of other interesting conversations with folks I'm following up with. And if enough of that comes together, we may share some more thoughts with some of the thought leaders who are out there. We'll also post a link to what I thought was a fascinating study they did about the underbanked and unbanked market, a position paper that Financial Health Network put out not long before the conference. And we had a conversation with Andrew Warren from FHN about that. So I'll post a link there as well. With that, another episode of the Big Cast in the books. Again, my name is Glen Sarvati. You can track me down, let's say LinkedIn. You can go wherever you want to try to find me. But LinkedIn's probably a pretty good place to do that. You can also drop me a note via the Best Innovation Group, big-fintech.com. If you go to the Media tab, you'll find lots of past episodes, including a conversation with John Best, where he rebutted some pretty interesting debates going on in the Reddit space around the value or the jumping the shark, the trough of disillusionment, whatever you want to call it, around AI. That he and I had a quick conversation about last week's episode. And that was right about the time that more of that came out with the encyclical and whatnot. Always love to hear from you. Drop us a note. Let us know what you think. Subscribe, like the podcast, wherever you get it. Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple, etc., or just always available at the website, big-fintech.com on the media tab. We usually have new content. Tuesday, it's the summer months. Sometimes it's been slipping through to Wednesday these days, but pretty much on a weekly basis. Love to hear from you. Drop a note. Hope to check in next week. And as always, thanks again for listening.
Check back each week for the latest from the Big Cast. Or better yet, we hope you'll consider subscribing for free via Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you have questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. Tweet us at Big Fintech. Email info@big-fintech.com or visit us at big-fintech.com and click on the Media tab, where you can post a comment or check out our archive of hundreds of past episodes. See you next week.